I want you to cast aside all doubts, all fears, and all limitations that you have imposed upon yourself. For in this moment we stand at the threshold of infinite possibility, where the seeds of greatness are waiting to be planted in the fertile soil of your imagination. Imagination, my dear friends, is the God-given power that resides within you. It is the very essence of creation, the force that shapes worlds and molds reality to its will. And today we shall harness this power to build an empire, not of brick and mortar, but of consciousness and manifestation. Now you may ask, Neville, how can I build an empire when I have nothing to my name? And to that I say you have everything you need within you at this very moment. For the empire we speak of is not one that exists in the external world, but one that takes form first in the realm of imagination. Consider for a moment the great empires of history: Rome, Britain, the United States. Before they became physical realities, they existed as ideas, as visions in the minds of those who dared to dream. And so it is with your empire. It must first be conceived and nurtured in the womb of your imagination before it can be birthed into the world of form. To act as if you're going to build an empire is to assume the state of the wish fulfilled. It is to live from the end, to experience in your mind and heart the reality of your as if it already exists. This, my friends, is the secret to manifestation that I have shared with you time and time again. Let us delve deeper into this concept. When you act as if you're going to build an empire, you are not pretending or deceiving yourself. No, you are aligning yourself with the universal law of assumption. You are stepping into the shoes of the person who has already achieved what you desire, feeding the emotions, thinking the thoughts, and carrying yourself with the confidence of one who has already succeeded. Imagine for a moment that you are the head of a vast empire. How would you walk? How would you talk? How would you interact with others? Would you doubt your abilities or question your worth? Of course not. You would move through the world with an unshakable belief in yourself and your vision. This is the state of consciousness you must adopt now, in this very moment. For as you assume this state, you set in motion the forces of creation that will bring your empire into being. Remember, my dear friends, the outer world is nothing more than a reflection of your inner state of being. Change the inner, and the outer must conform. Now, some of you may be thinking, but Neville, I've tried plenty of thinking before, and nothing changed. To this I say, you have not fully understood the power of imagination and assumption. It is not enough to merely think positive thoughts or recite affirmations. You must feel the reality of your desired state with every fiber of your being. When you lie down to sleep at night, do not close your eyes to the world as it appears to be. Instead, close your eyes to enter the world as you wish it to be. See yourself at the helm of your empire. Feel the weight of responsibility on your shoulders, but also the exhilaration of success. Hear the voices of those who look to you for leadership. Smell the leather of your executive chair. Taste the sweetness of accomplishment. As you immerse yourself in this imaginal scene night after night, you are impressing upon your subconscious mind the reality of your empire. And it is your subconscious mind, my friends, that holds the power to bring your desires into manifestation. Consider the biblical story of Joseph, who interpreted Pharaoh's dream of fat cows, followed by 7 lean cows. Joseph understood that the dream was a presage of 7 years of abundance, followed by 7 years of famine. But more importantly, he acted on this knowledge, preparing Egypt for the coming hardship and ultimately saving the nation. You too must act on the knowledge of your coming empire. Prepare yourself mentally, emotionally, and spiritually for the greatness that awaits you. Cultivate the skill, the mindset, and the connections that an empire builder would possess. For in doing so, you are not merely pretending, you are becoming. Let me share with you a personal experience that illustrates this principle. Many years ago, when I was a young man struggling to make ends meet, I decided that I would become a successful author and lecturer. At the time, this seemed like an impossible dream. I had no connections, no formal education in writing or public speaking, and certainly no audience. But I understood the power of imagination and assumption. Every night before I fell asleep, I would imagine myself standing on stage before a packed auditorium, I could hear the applause, feel the energy of a crowd, and see the rapt attention on their faces as I shared my teachings. In my imagination, I held my published books in my hands, feeling their weight and texture, seeing my name on the cover. During the day, I acted as if this were already my reality. I carried myself with the confidence of a successful author and speaker. I spoke about my ideas with passion and conviction, even if my audience was just one person. I wrote tirelessly, honing my craft, believing that my words would one day reach millions. And lo and behold, my friends, that reality came to pass. Not overnight, not without effort, but with an unwavering in the power of my imagination. The empire in my mind became manifest in the physical world. This is the power that lies within each of you. The empire you seek to build, be it in business, in the arts, in philanthropy, or in any other field already existing potential. Your task is to bring it forth through the creative power of your imagination. Now let us address a common misconception. Acting as if you're going to build an imp does not mean ignoring the present reality or neglecting the practical steps necessary for success. On the contrary, it means approaching your current circumstances with the mindset of an empire builder. If you are currently working an entry-level job, do not despair or resent your position. Instead, see it as the first step in your empire-building journey. Approach each task, no matter how mundane, with the dedication and excellence a CEO. For in truth, you are the CEO of your own life, the ruler of your inner kingdom. Remember the words of Scripture, he who is faithful in little is always faithful. By proving your worth and capability in your current circumstances, you are laying the foundation for the empire to come. The skills you develop, the relationships you forge, the reputation you build, all of these are true elements in the manifestation of your vision. Moreover, as you act from the state of having achieved your goal, you will find that opportunities begin to present themselves. Doors that were once closed will mysteriously open. People who can aid you in your journey will be drawn to you, almost as if by magic. But it is not magic, my dear friends. It is the law of attraction and action, responding to the changes in your consciousness. Let me give you an example to illustrate this point. Imagine two individuals, both aspiring entrepreneurs. The first constantly doubts himself, focuses on his limitations, and approaches potential investors with a sense of desperation. The second, having applied the principle we're discussing today, carries himself with the confidence of a successful business owner. He sees each meeting not as a plea for help, but as an opportunity to share his vision and invite others to be part of something great. Which of these two do you think is more likely to succeed? Which one would you be more inclined to support or invest in? The answer is clear. By assuming the state of success, by acting as if your empire is already a reality, you become a magnet for the very opportunities and resources you need to make it manifest. But let me caution you, my friends, this is not about ego or arrogance. The empire builder we speak of is not a tyrant or a despot, but a visionary leader who owns that true power lies in service to others. As you act as if you're building an empire, cultivate also the qualities of wisdom, compassion, and responsibility. For what good is an empire if it does not uplift humanity? What value is there in wealth and power if it does not supply up higher purpose? The greatest empires in history are those that have contributed to the advancement of civilization, that have left the world better than they found it. So as you imagine your empire, see also the positive impact it will have on the world. Visualize the lives that will be improved, the problems that will be solved, the beauty that will be created. Let this be the driving force behind your actions, the fuel that powers your imagination. Now, my dear friends, I want you to understand that the journey of building an empire is not always smooth or easy. There will be challenges, setbacks, and moments of doubt. But it is in these moments that the power of your imagination becomes most crucial. When faced with obstacles, do not succumb to fear or despair. Instead, return to your imaginal scene. Step once again into the reality of your completed empire. Feel the strength, the resilience, the unwavering faith of the person who has overcome all challenges to achieve their vision. From this state of consciousness, approach your problems not as insurmountable barriers, but as opportunities for growth and innovation. For every great empire in history has faced its share of challenges, and it is in overcoming these challenges that empires are forged and leaders are made. Consider the story of Abraham Lincoln, who failed in business, suffered a nervous breakdown, and lost multiple elections before becoming one of the greatest presidents in American history. Or think of Steve Jobs, who was ousted from the company he founded only to return years later and lead Apple to unprecedented success. These individuals did not allow their circumstances to define them. They held fast to their vision. They acted as if their empires were destined to be built, and in doing so, they reshaped the world. You too have this power within you. The challenges you face are not punishments or signs of failure. They are the very tools by which your empire will be built, the forge in which your character will be tempered. As you go through your daily life, I want you to be acutely aware of your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions. Are they aligned with the empire you intend to build? Are you thinking the thoughts of an empire builder? Are you feeling emotions of someone who knows their success is assured? Are you taking the actions that your future self would be proud of? If you find yourself slipping into doubt or negativity, do not judge yourself harshly. Simply acknowledge the thought or emotion and then consciously choose to realign yourself with your vision. This is the practice of living from the end, of maintaining the state of the wish fulfilled. Let me share with you a technique that I have found particularly powerful in maintaining the state of consciousness. Throughout your day, pause for a moment and ask yourself, how would I be seeing this situation if my empire were already built? This simple question can shift your perspective dramatically, allowing you to approach even the most challenging circumstances from a place of power and possibility. For instance, if you're faced with a difficult decision, instead of feeling overwhelmed, ask yourself, how would the successful leader of my empire handle this situation? By doing so, you tap into a wellspring of wisdom and confidence that you may not have realized you possessed. Remember, my friends, the empire you are building is not separate from you. It is an extension of your consciousness, a manifestation of your innermost being. As you grow and evolve, so too will your empire. As you expand your consciousness, so too will the reach and impact of your vision. This is why personal growth and self-reflection are crucial elements in the process of empire building. Take time each day to nurture your mind, body, and spirit. Read voraciously, not just in your field of expertise, but across a wide range of subjects. For true innovation often comes from connecting ideas across disparate fields. Practice meditation or contemplation, allowing yourself moments of stillness amidst the busyness of building your empire. In these moments of quiet, you may receive inspirations and insights that can propel your vision forward in ways you never imagined. Care for your physical health as well, for a strong body supports a strong mind. The demands of empire building require stamina, energy, and resilience. By treating your body as a valuable instrument, it is to ensure that you have the vitality needed to bring your vision to life. And perhaps most importantly, cultivate relationships with others who share your vision and values. Surround yourself with those who believe in you and your empire, even if they cannot yet see it in the physical world. Their faith in you will strengthen your own faith in yourself. But be cautious, my dear friends, of those who would seek to diminish your vision or discourage you from your path. Not everyone will understand the empire you are building, especially in its early stages. Some may scoff at your ambitions or try to convince you to settle for less. These voices, both external and internal, you must learn to say with kindness but firmness, I appreciate your concern, but I know the truth of who I am and what I am capable of achieving. For in the end, it is your belief in yourself and your vision that will determine the success of your empire. As we near the conclusion of our time together, I want to emphasize once more the importance of persistence and patience in this process. Rome, as they say, was not built in a day, and neither will your empire be. But every day, with every thought, every emotion, and every action aligned with your vision, you are laying the foundation and erecting the pillars of your empire. Trust in the process, my friends. Trust in the law of assumption. Trust in the creative power of your imagination. For as surely as night follows day, the seed planted in the fertile soil of your mind will grow and bear fruit in the physical world. Let me leave you with this final thought. The empire you are building is not just for you. It is for all those whose lives will be touched and transformed by your vision. It is for the generations that will come after you, who will build upon the foundation you have laid. So act as if you're going to build an empire, not just for your own sake, but for the sake of all humanity. Let your vision be grand, let your actions be bold, and let your faith be unshakable. For in truth, my dear friends, you are not just building an empire. You are participating in the grand creative process of the universe itself. You are fulfilling your divine purpose, expressing the infinite potential that lies within you. As you leave this place today, carry with you the knowledge that you are already the emperor or empress of your own consciousness. The throne is yours to claim. The crown is yours to wear. Step into this role with grace, with confidence, and with the unwavering certainty that your empire is not just a possibility, but an inevitability. Go forth, my friends, and build your empires, not in some distant future, but here and now, in the only moment that truly exists. For as you assume the state of the wish fulfilled, as you live from the end, you set in motion forces beyond your comprehension that will work tirelessly to bring your vision into reality. Remember, the world is waiting for your empire. It is waiting for the unique gifts that only you can bring, for the problems that only you can solve, for the beauty that only you can create. Do not keep the world waiting any longer. Act as if you're going to build an empire, and watch in awe as the universe conspires to make it so. For in the end, my dear friends, it is not just an empire you are building, but a new world, a world shaped by your imagination, brought into being by your faith, and sustained by your love. Go now and create. Go now and build. Go now and become the emperor or empress you were always meant to be. The power is within you. The time is now, and the world is waiting. Thank you, and may your empires flourish beyond your wildest dreams. Let me share with you what I mean. In the beginning was the unconditioned awareness of being, and this awareness desired to express itself. The supreme intelligence that we call God began to imagine, and all creation came into being. The worlds were framed by the word of God, meaning that God's imaginal acts became the realities of experience. And you, being made in the image of God, possess this same creative power. I say to you, whatever you desire, first you must assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. If you want success in your endeavors, you must first enter the state of consciousness where you feel that success is already yours. If you want health, you must first assume the feeling of being healthy. If you want wealth, you must first enter into the state of the wealthy. The secret lies in a principle simple that most dismiss it. Consciousness is the only reality, and what you are conscious of being, you become. All things exist in the human imagination, and it is through the human imagination that things are made manifest. Consider a simple example from my own experience. Years ago, I desired to travel to Barbados to see my family, but there seemed to be no way for this to happen. The tickets were too expensive, my commitments in New York too pressing. Yet, instead of accepting these so-called facts, I began to live in the assumption that I was already in Barbados. Each night before sleep, I would imagine the waves crashing on the shore, feeling the warm Barbadian sun on my face, hearing my family's voices welcoming me home. I persisted in this assumption, feeling the joy and gratitude of being in Barbados. And within a matter of weeks, against all reasonable expectations, I received a letter from my brother with money for passage to Barbados. What seemed impossible to my reasoning mind was made manifest through the power of my imaginal act. Do you see the principle at work? I did not manipulate events externally. I did not struggle or strain. I simply changed my state of consciousness, and the outer circumstances rearrange themselves to match this new inner conviction. This is why I tell you to live as if everything always works out. Because when you enter that state of consciousness, when you truly believe and feel it to be true, the universe moves in harmony with your assumption. This is not wishful thinking. This is the law of consciousness. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. These words from Proverbs reveal the creative principle of all existence. Your thoughts, imbued with feeling, create the conditions and circumstances of your life. The outer world is nothing more than a reflection of your inner assumptions. Many of you come to me asking how to manifest specific desires: a new job, a loving relationship, improved health, financial abundance. And I always tell you the same thing. You must first assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You must live from the end. If you want a new job, you must feel the satisfaction and security of having that job now. If you want a loving relationship, you must feel the joy and companionship of that relationship now. If you want health, you must feel the vitality and strength of perfect health now. For imagination creates reality, and what you assume, you become. Your assumption, though false to others, if persisted in, will harden into fact. This is the creative law by which all things come into being. But I hear some of you say, Neville, I have tried to imagine good things, but nothing happens. To this I respond, have you truly entered the state? Have you actually assumed the feeling of the wish fulfilled? Or have you merely wished and hoped, while secretly believing in limitation and failure? The difference is crucial. When you truly assume a state, you live and think from it. You do not mentally stand outside it, hoping it will come to pass. You step into it completely, embody it fully, and sustain that feeling regardless of appearances. Consider the biblical story of Daniel. When he was thrown into the den of lions, he did not focus on the danger around him. He maintained an inner state of peace and safety, knowing that God, his own wonderful human imagination, was with him, and the lions could not touch him, because he refused to accept the state of fear that would have made them real threats. This is what it means to live as if everything always works out. It means to so fully occupy the state of your fulfilled desire that you expect nothing but the best, regardless of what your senses may temporarily report. Now let me clarify something important. To live as if everything always works out does not mean ignoring problems or being irresponsible. It means approaching challenges from a higher level of consciousness where solutions become self-evident. When you assume the state of the wish fulfilled, you naturally take the actions that someone in that state would take. If you assume health, you will find yourself naturally making healthier choices. If you assume abundance, you will find yourself recognizing and acting upon opportunities that lead to greater abundance. If you assume loving relationships, you will naturally embody the qualities that foster love. Your outer actions flow from your inner state. So first change the inner state, and the outer actions will follow naturally and effortlessly. I want to share with you a profound truth that few understand. Time is purely psychological. It does not exist in the way most believe it does. What we call the future is simply a present possibility pressing upon us, seeking expression. And what we call the past is but a present memory. All of existence, past, present, and future, exist now, in this eternal moment. And it is your present assumption that determines which aspect of this infinite now you will experience as your reality. This is why I tell you to live as if everything already works out. Because in the realm of true reality consciousness, it already has. Your desired state already exists as a present possibility. Your job is not to create it, but to select it through your assumption and thereby make it your present experience. Let me illustrate this with another personal experience. Once I found myself in need of a larger lecture hall for my talks in New York. The current venue was too small for the growing audience, but larger halls were expensive and difficult to secure. Instead of fretting over this problem, I simply assumed that the perfect venue had already been provided. I would walk through the streets of New York, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for this wonderful new hall that was now mine for use. I did not know how it would come about, but I persisted in the assumption that it was already done. And within a matter of days, I received a call from a gentleman who offered me the use of a beautiful hall at a price I could easily afford. He had attended one of my lectures and felt compelled to make this offer. Do you see how it works? I did not make this happen through physical effort. I made it happen by selecting a state of consciousness in which it was already accomplished, and then living from that state. The outer circumstances had no choice but to rearrange themselves to match my inner conviction. This is the secret of living, as if everything always works out. You acknowledge that in consciousness, which is the only reality, it already has worked out. And then the so-called outer world must conform to this inner reality. But some of you may be thinking, this sounds wonderful. But what about when things go wrong? What about disappointments and failures? My answer to this is simple yet challenging. There are no failures when you understand the law of consciousness. What appears as failure is simply the result of your assumptions and can be changed by changing those assumptions. If you find yourself experiencing something unwanted, ask yourself, what am I assuming that makes this experience necessary? For every experience reflects some belief, some assumption that you hold. Change the assumption, and you change the experience. Remember the story of Job in the Bible. The thing I feared has come upon me. Job's fears, which were nothing more than negative assumptions, created the very experiences he dreaded. But when he changed his consciousness, when he stopped fearing and started imagining better things, his fortunes were restored. So when apparent setbacks occur, do not despair. Do not externals. See them as temporary reflections of past assumptions, which can be altered by your new assumptions. Live as if everything always works out, not as a denial of present service, but as a commitment to the truth that consciousness is the only reality, and your consciousness can be changed from this moment forward. Many approach life as though success were determined by external factors, economic conditions, other people's opinions, past failures, or personal limitations. But I tell you, the only limits to your life are those you accept in your own thinking. Change your thinking, or more accurately, change your consciousness, and you change your world. Now let me address a common misconception. Many believe that to assume a state means to verbally affirm or to visualize it. These practices can be helpful, but they are merely techniques to aid in the essential act, which is to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. It is not enough to say, everything works out for me. It is not even enough to visualize things working out. You must capture the feeling, the conviction, the certainty that everything is working out now. For feeling is the secret, the creative power that brings all things into being. How do you know when you have successfully captured this feeling? You will know by a peculiar sense of relief. A feeling of it is done. There is no more anxiety, no more striving, no more wondering how it will happen. There is only a quiet confidence that it is finished. And once you have this feeling, you must persist in it. The Bible says, I shall persist until I succeed. This persistence is not a struggle. It is simply the natural dwelling in the state of the wish fulfilled, regardless of appearances to the contrary. Some time ago, a woman came to me in great distress. Her husband had left her for another woman, and she wanted him to return. I told her that if she wanted her husband back, she must assume the feeling of being happily married to him again. She must live from the assumption that he had already returned, and that their marriage was more loving than ever. At first, she found this difficult. The evidence of her senses, the empty house, the divorce papers, his relationship with another woman, seemed to contradict the assumption I was asking her to make. But I reminded her that consciousness is the only reality, and that the outer world must conform to her inner assumptions. So she began to sleep each night as though her husband were lying beside her. She would mentally hear his voice, feel his presence, experience the joy of their reunion. During the day, she would wear her wedding ring and think from the assumption of being a happily married woman. Within a month, her husband called her. He was confused about his feelings, he said. He missed her. Could they meet to talk? This led to a reconciliation and eventually moved back home. Their marriage was indeed restored, And according to her, it was stronger than before. What happened here? Did she somehow manipulate or control her husband? Absolutely not. She simply changed her own consciousness, her own assumptions. And since consciousness is the only reality out her, circumstances, including her husband's feelings and actions, had to rearrange themselves to match her new inner conviction. This is the power you possess. This is why I urge you to live as if everything always works out. Because when you truly assume this state, when you live from it with conviction, the universe has no choice but to reflect it back to you in the form of outer experience. Now there is another aspect of this principle that I must address. When I tell you to live as if everything always works out, I am not suggesting that every specific desire you have will be fulfilled exactly as you imagine it. Sometimes what comes is even better than what you had specifically envisioned. The deeper truth is that when you live in a state of knowing that everything works out for your good, you open yourself to infinite possibilities that your limited human mind could not conceive. You align yourself with the divine flow, which always moves toward greater expansion, greater joy, greater fulfillment. I have seen this in my own life countless times. I would assume a specific state, seeking a particular outcome. And while that outcome might or might materialize exactly as imagined, something would always come that perfectly fulfilled the essence of my desire, often in ways far more wonderful than I had originally conceived. This is why it is wise to combine specific imaginal acts with a general assumption that all is well, that everything is working together for your good. This keeps you both focused and flexible, both intentional and open to even greater possibilities than your current mental framework can envision. The Bible tells us, "Eye has not seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things which God has prepared for them that love him." This means that what awaits you when you live in the assumption that everything works out is far greater than anything you can currently imagine. So live boldly in that assumption. Know that the very intelligence that created the stars and sustains the universe is working on your behalf, guiding you toward your highest good, arranging the perfect circumstances for your growth and joy. Let me tell you about a young man who came to my lectures years ago. He was struggling financially, barely able to pay his rent, working a job he despised. I shared with him this principle we're discussing tonight, to live as if everything always works out. He began to assume the feeling of financial security and meaningful work. He would fall asleep each night feeling the relief and satisfaction of having plenty of money and doing work he loved. He would imagine the congratulations of friends, the feeling of looking at his bank statement with satisfaction, the joy of waking up excited to go to work. Within 3 months, he was offered a position at a company he greatly admired, doing work aligned with his passions and talents. The salary was twice what he had been making. What's more, he met his future wife through this new job, something he hadn't specifically imagined, but which fulfilled his deeper desire for companionship and love. Had he focused only on the specific job he thought he wanted, or the exact amount of money he thought he needed, he might have missed this greater fulfillment that was awaiting him. By living in the general assumption that everything works out perfectly, he opened himself to possibilities beyond his limited conception. This is the art of living wisely with this principle. You combine specific imaginal acts for the things you currently desire with a general assumption that all is well, that the intelligence within you knows what you truly need and is guiding you perfectly. Now let me address another important aspect of living as if everything always works out. It is the attitude toward what we call problems or challenges. When you truly embody this principle, you no longer see problems as obstacles, but as opportunities for growth and redirection. Every apparent setback contains within it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. Every closed door points you toward an open door that leads to something better. This is not positive thinking. This is the absolute law of consciousness. When you live as if everything always works out, you develop a deep trust in the unfolding of life. You know that even what appears as delay, disappointment, or defeat is actually part of a larger pattern leading to your good. With this trust comes a profound peace that transcends understanding. I recall a man who attended my lectures who had invested heavily in a business venture that failed. He lost nearly everything. Most people would have been devastated, caught in a state of regret, anxiety, and fear. But this man, understanding the principle we're discussing, chose to assume that this apparent failure was actually setting him up for something far better. He would say to himself, "This is working out perfectly for me. This apparent loss is actually guiding me toward my greater good." He felt genuine gratitude for the experience, trusting that it contained a valuable lesson and a new direction. Within 6 months, he had started a new business based on insights gained from the failure of the previous one. This new venture proved far more successful than the original could ever have been. Looking back, he could clearly see that what had seemed like a devastating loss was actually the perfect redirection he needed. This is the kind of trust I am inviting you to cultivate. Not a passive resignation to whatever happens, but an active assumption that everything is working together for your good. The Bible tells us, all things work together for good to them that love God. And who is this God they love? It is your own I am, your own consciousness. When you love the I am within you, when you trust it completely, all things do indeed work together for your good. Now, I want to speak about something that few teachers address. When you live as if everything always works out, you must be willing to let go of how you think it should work out. This is perhaps the most challenging aspect of this principle, but also the most liberating. Many people try to control exactly how their desires will be fulfilled. They not only imagine what they want, but also try to dictate precisely how it must come to them. This is a mistake that often delays or prevents the manifestation of their desires. When you truly live as if everything always works out, you surrender the how to the infinite intelligence of your deeper self. You trust that the way will be shown, that the perfect circumstances will arrange themselves, often in ways far more elegant and efficient than your limited human mind could have devised. This surrender is not weakness. It is the highest form of spiritual power. It is the recognition that your conscious mind sees only a tiny fraction of the infinite possibilities available, while your deeper self, the God within you, sees all and knows the perfect way to bring about your good. I am reminded of a woman who desperately wanted to move to a specific city where she felt her career would flourish. She had tried repeatedly to secure a position there, but had been unsuccessful. In frustration, she came to me for advice. I suggested that instead of focusing on this specific city and the exact way she thought her desire should be fulfilled, she should simply assume the feeling of having a fulfilling career and a wonderful place to live. The where and how was not for her to determine. She began to live in this more general assumption, feeling gratitude for her perfect position and ideal living situation, without specifying the location or circumstances. Within weeks, she was offered a position she had never even considered, in a different city entirely, but one that offered everything she had truly desired in terms of career growth, lifestyle, and living environment. Had she continued to insist that her desire must be fulfilled in exactly the way she had originally conceived, she would have missed this perfect opportunity. This is the wisdom of surrendering the how while maintaining absolute faith in the fulfillment of the what. It is to say, this or something better now manifests for me, rather than it must be exactly this, in exactly this way. When you live as if everything always works out, you develop a flexibility, an openness to infinite possibilities that actually accelerates the manifestation of your desires. You allow yourself to be surprised by grace, to be astonished by the creative solutions that emerge when you trust the process completely. And now, my friends, I wish to address the most profound aspect of this principle. When you live as if everything always works out, you are actually aligning yourself with the fundamental nature of reality. For the universe is, at its core, supportive, abundant, and oriented toward growth and fulfillment. The appearance of struggle, lack, and limitation is just that, an appearance, a temporary distortion produced by false assumptions. When you assume that everything works out perfectly, you are not adopting a fake positive attitude. You are aligning yourself with the truth of existence. This is why this principle works so reliably. It is not some magical technique or psychological trick. It is simply the recognition and embodiment of how reality actually functions. The universe is not against you, it is for you. Life is not a struggle to overcome obstacles. It is a joyful unfolding of ever greater good. When you live from this recognition, life becomes increasingly effortless. Problems solve themselves. Opportunities appear as if by magic. Relationships harmonize. Health improves. Abundance flows. Not because you are manipulating reality, but because you are aligning yourself with the true nature of reality. Now I want to share with you a practice that will help you embody this principle more fully. Each night, as you lie in bed preparing for sleep, review the events of your day from the perspective that everything is working out perfectly for you. Even the challenges, the disappointments, the apparent setbacks, see them all as part of a perfectly orchestrated plan for your growth and fulfillment. Feel genuine gratitude for everything that happened, knowing that it is all moving you toward your good. Then, from this state of gratitude and trust, imagine the fulfillment of your current desires. See them as already accomplished. Feel the joy, the relief, the satisfaction of having what you desire now. Fall asleep in this state of fulfillment and trust. This practice done consistently will revolutionize your life. For the state of consciousness in which you fall asleep is particularly powerful in conditioning your subconscious mind, which then goes to work to bring about the conditions and circumstances that match your assumptions. Remember, your subconscious mind does not argue with you. It simply accepts what you feed it through your conscious assumptions and then works faithfully to bring these assumptions into your experienced reality. This is why the state in which you fall asleep is so crucial. It sets the tone for the manifestations that will follow. Many of you have heard the biblical phrase, "Let not the sun go down upon your anger." This is not merely moral advice, it is practical instruction in the art of conscious creation. To fall asleep in a state of anger, worry, or fear is to impress these states upon your subconscious mind, which then manifests corresponding experiences in your life. Conversely, to fall asleep in a state of confidence that everything is working out perfectly is to impress this assumption upon your subconscious, which then goes to work to bring about experiences that confirm this belief. So practice this nightly review and revision. See your day through the lens of perfect unfoldment. Feel gratitude for all of it. Then imagine the fulfillment of your desires as you drift into sleep. Do this consistently and watch how your life transforms. Now, let me address a question that often arises in relation to this principle. Neville, people ask if everything always works out. Why do I see so much evidence to the contrary in my life and in the world? This is a profound question that deserves a thoughtful answer. What you see in your life and in the world is not evidence of how reality fundamentally works. It is evidence of the assumptions that have been collectively and individually accepted. The appearance of things not working out is simply the manifestation of the assumption that things don't work out. When you change your assumption, when you live as if everything always works out, you begin to see evidence of this new assumption in your experience. At first, it may be small things, a problem that resolves itself unexpectedly, an opportunity that appears out of nowhere. But as you persist in your new assumption, the evidence grows until your entire life reflects the truth that everything does indeed work out perfectly. As for the wider world and its apparent problems, remember that what you see is filtered through your own consciousness. When you assume that everything works out, you begin to notice the evidence of this even in world events. You see the growth that comes from challenges, the new systems that emerge from the breakdown of old ones, the way humanity evolves through its difficulties. This does not mean becoming detached or uncaring about the world's struggles. On the contrary, by holding the assumption that everything works out perfectly, you actually contribute to the resolution of these struggles. For collective reality, like individual reality, is shaped by consciousness. And every individual who shifts to a higher assumption helps elevate the collective consciousness. I want to share with you a story from my own experience that illustrates the power of this principle in action. Years ago, I was scheduled to give a lecture in a city I had never visited before. My train was delayed, and by the time I arrived, it was already past the scheduled start time of my talk. I had no idea where the venue was located, And this was long before cell phones or GPS. Most people would have panicked in this situation. But I had been living for years in the assumption that everything always works out perfectly for me. So instead of worrying, I simply maintained this assumption. I hailed a taxi and told the driver I needed to get to a lecture venue, though I couldn't recall the exact address. To my amazement, the driver said, "Are you Mr. Goddard? I was just at the venue where you're supposed to speak. They sent me to look for you at the train station. But I missed you there." He proceeded to drive me directly to the venue, where the audience was patiently waiting. Was this luck? A coincidence? I do not believe so. It was the natural outworking of my assumption that everything always works out perfectly. The outer circumstances had to rearrange themselves to match this inner conviction. I have experienced this kind of coincidence countless times in my life. And I know many of you have as well. When you live in the assumption that everything works out, these synchronicities become the norm rather than the exception. This is because, at the deepest level, there are no separate events or circumstances. All is connected in the one consciousness that underlies all of creation. When you assume a state within consciousness, you activate a pattern of connections that brings about the manifestation of that state in your experience. So live boldly in the assumption that everything always works out. Know that the entire universe is conspiring for your good, arranging every detail perfectly, guiding you unfailingly toward the fulfillment of your desires. And now I want to address what may be the most important aspect of this principle. When you live as if everything always works out, you are not merely changing your personal circumstances, you are fulfilling your divine purpose. For your purpose here is to express the infinite potential of the God within you, to manifest more and more of the divine nature in your lived experience. God, the infinite consciousness that is your true identity, is absolute good, absolute abundance, absolute love, absolute wisdom. When you assume that everything works out perfectly, you are allowing more of this divine nature to express through you. You are fulfilling the very purpose for which you came into being. This is why living from this assumption feels so good, so right, so natural. It is alignment with your true self. It is the remembrance of who you really are. It is the reclaiming of your divine heritage. So do not think of this principle as merely a technique for getting what you want. Think of it as the pathway to becoming who you truly are, a divine being having a human experience, a creator made in the image of the creator, an expression of infinite potential in finite form. When you live as if everything always works out, you are saying to the universe, I remember who I am. I reclaim my divine nature. I accept my role as a conscious creator. And the universe responds with an enthusiastic yes to this remembrance, this reclamation, this acceptance. As we draw to a close this evening, I want to leave you with a simple but powerful practice. For the next 7 days, I challenge you to live completely in the assumption that everything always works out perfectly for you. No matter what appears in your outer experience, maintain this assumption without wavering. When you wake in the morning, affirm to yourself, everything is working out perfectly for me today. Feel the relief, the confidence, the trust that comes with this assumption. Then go about your day watching for the evidence that confirms your assumption. When challenges arise, and they will remind yourself this too is working out perfectly, look for the gift, the lesson, the redirection contained within the challenge. Maintain your assumption regardless of appearances. At night, review your day through the lens of perfect unfoldment. See how everything contributed to your growth and good, even if you don't yet understand exactly how. Feel gratitude for the perfect unfolding of your life. Then sleep in the confidence that tomorrow will unfold with the same perfection. Do this for 7 days without missing a single moment of alignment with this assumption. At the end of the 7 days, look back and notice how your experience has shifted, how problems have resolved themselves, how opportunities have appeared, how your inner state has transformed. This 7-day practice can be the beginning of a completely new way of living a life of trust, a flow of alignment with your divine nature, a life where struggle gives way to ease, where fear gives way to confidence, where limitation gives way to abundance. For when you truly live as if everything always works out perfectly, you are living in the truth of your being. And the truth, as we are promised, will set you free. Now, my friends, go forth in the confidence that everything is working out perfectly for you, not because you wish it to be so, not because you have mentally affirmed it, but because it is the absolute truth of your existence. You are divine consciousness expressing in human form, and the entire universe is conspiring for your unfoldment, your growth, your fulfillment. Live from this truth, embody this truth, become this truth, and watch as your life transforms into the glorious expression of divine potential that it was always meant to be. Remember, consciousness is the only reality. And when your consciousness is aligned with the truth that everything always works out perfectly, then that becomes your experienced reality. It is the law, as infallible as gravity, as certain as mathematics. The choice is yours, as it has always been. Choose to live as if everything always works out, and it will. This is my promise to you, based not on theory, but on decades of testing this principle in my own life and witnessing its operation in the lives of countless others. Trust the process. Trust the law. Trust your divine nature, and all will be well, more gloriously well than your human mind can currently conceive. Thank you for your attention this evening. May you go forth in the certainty that everything always works out perfectly for you, now and forever. Let us turn to the ancient wisdom found in Scripture. For the Bible is not a record of historical events, but the greatest psychological drama ever written. It reveals the pattern by which man may consciously rise to higher levels of himself. Be still and know that I am God. These words from the 46th Psalm contain the very essence of our discussion tonight. In stillness, in quiet, in the absence of effort, you discover your true identity as God, the operant power in the universe. I have often shared the story of my own discovery of this law. It was not through outward seeking, but through an inward journey. When I found myself in Barbados, having promised my family I would be with them for Christmas, but lacking the financial means to make the journey, I did not struggle outwardly. Instead, I lay upon my bed in New York City and transported myself in imagination to my family home. I slept in my childhood bed, heard the familiar sounds of the island, felt the tropical breeze upon my skin, and embraced my family members with joy. I lived from the end, experiencing in imagination what I desired to experience in reality, and within days, without any outer effort on my part, the means to make the journey materialize. This is the meaning of building yourself quietly. It is not about outer show or the approval of others. It is not about struggle or strain or sacrifice. It is about the quiet assumption of the state of consciousness that would be yours if you already possess what you desire. Consider the words of the Master. When you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly. Your room is your mind. The door you shut is the silencing of your senses, and the Father in secret is your own wonderful human imagination, the creative power that brings forth all things. The open reward is the visible manifestation in your world. Tonight, I urge you to give up the belief that anything outside yourself has power over you. Give up the struggle to change outer conditions, for they are but reflections of your inner state. Instead, turn within. In the quiet of your own being, assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Feel the naturalness of being the person you desire to be. Feel the reality of possessing what you seek to possess. Feel the relief, the satisfaction, the joy that would be yours if your desire were already an accomplished fact. The outer world may tell you this is fantasy, that you are deceiving yourself. It may point to evidence that contradicts your assumption. But I say to you, the evidence of your senses is but the harvest of past assumptions. If you would change the harvest, you must now sow different seeds in the fertile soil of your imagination. In this quiet building of yourself, persistence is essential. You must be faithful to your assumption. If, for example, you wish to be financially secure, you must not only assume the feeling of wealth in a single meditation, but must continue in that assumption as you move through your day. When doubts arise, as they inevitably will, gently bring your attention back to the feeling of your wish fulfilled. This is not self-deception. It is the highest form of truth. For what you are assuming is the only reality, and the outer world must reshape itself to conform to that inner conviction. Many fail in this work because they give up too soon. They assume the feeling of their wish fulfilled for a brief period, but then return to their habitual state of consciousness. Remember the parable of the fig tree. When the master cursed it, nothing appeared to happen immediately, but the tree was withered from its roots, though the evidence was not yet visible. So it is with your assumptions. The moment you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, your desire begins to move toward manifestation, though the outer evidence may not be immediately apparent. Let me share with you a letter I received just last week. A gentleman who had attended these talks wrote to me saying that for years he had struggled to advance in his profession. Despite his qualifications and hard work, promotion seemed always to elude him. After hearing our discussions on the law of assumption, he began each night before sleep to experience in imagination the congratulations of his colleagues on his new position. He felt the handshakes, heard the words of praise, experienced the satisfaction of his increased salary. He did this quietly, telling no one of his inner work. Within 2 months, a position was created specifically for him, a position that had previously existed in his company at exactly the salary he had imagined. He built himself quietly, and the outer world reshaped itself to match his inner assumption. This is the pattern. First, clarify your desire. Second, construct a scene which would imply the fulfillment of that desire. Third, immerse yourself in that scene until it takes on the tones of reality. Fourth, from that state of fulfilled desire, open your eyes to the outer world. And fifth, remain faithful to your new assumption regardless of contrary evidence. This is how you build yourself quietly. Now let us delve deeper into the nature of consciousness, for this is the material with which you build. Your consciousness is the only reality. All that you perceive outside yourself is but a manifestation of states within yourself. The people, circumstances, and events of your life are drawn to you by the magnetic power of your dominant assumptions. As within, so without. This is the great law. Many of you have been taught that your consciousness is limited, that you are merely human, separate from the divine creative power. But I tell you that your own wonderful human imagination is God in action. I and my Father are one, said the Master, and this is true of every man. The creative power that you attribute to a God outside yourself is your own imagination. And the world around you is nothing more than your own consciousness made visible. When you truly grasp this, you will understand why building yourself quietly is so powerful. For if all is consciousness, then by changing your consciousness, by assuming a new state, you literally become a new being. And that new being must express itself in your world. But how do you effectively change your consciousness? Through the controlled use of imagination while in a state akin to sleep. This state, this quiet, receptive state where the senses are diminished and attention is focused inward, is where all creation begins. In this state, imaginal acts have a transformative power that they lack when you are fully awake and attentive to the outer world. Let me give you a simple technique to practice. Tonight, as you lie in bed preparing for sleep, clarify in your mind what you wish to be. Perhaps you desire to be confident, healthy, wealthy, or loved. Whatever it may be, formulate a scene that would imply this state has been realized. If health is your desire, imagine a friend congratulating you on your vibrant appearance. If prosperity is your aim, feel the satisfaction of seeing a bank statement with the figures that would delight you. Then, with your eyes closed, enact this scene. See it clearly, hear the sounds that would accompany it. Feel the emotions that would be yours in the fulfilled state. Do this until the imaginal scene takes on the feeling of reality. Then, still immersed in this feeling, drift off to sleep. In this way, you are building yourself quietly, impressing upon your subconscious mind the new concept of self. The subconscious does not argue or question. It simply accepts what you present to it in feeling, and then proceeds to express that state. This is why feeling is the secret. It is not enough to intellectually affirm your desire or to visualize it without emotion. You must feel the reality of the state desired. Feeling is the prayer, and prayer is answered when the feeling is absorbed by the subconscious. As you continue this practice night after night, you will notice subtle changes in your daytime experience. Opportunities that align with your desire will begin to present themselves. People who can assist you will be drawn into your life. Circumstances will arrange themselves to facilitate the expression of your new state of being. All of this will happen without your conscious effort or planning. This is the law in action. Remember, you are not creating something new. You are simply selecting and expressing a state that already exists within the infinite variety of states that comprise your complete self. In the realm of consciousness, all possible states of being exist now. When you assume a state in imagination, you are not creating it. You are occupying it, and by occupying it, you make it your own. This understanding frees you from the anxious striving that characterizes so much of human existence. You need not worry about how your desire will be fulfilled. The law itself contains the means of fulfillment. Your only responsibility is to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and to persist in that assumption. The how is not your concern. Think of the acorn. Within it lies all the potential of the mighty oak. Yet the acorn does not worry about how it will become an oak. It simply rests in the soil, allowing the law of growth to operate through it. So it is with your desires. Plant them as seeds in the fertile soil of your consciousness. Water them with the feeling of reality, and they must grow into manifestation. This is law. I am often asked, but what are the desires of others? What if my desire conflicts with another's? The answer is simple. There is no competition in consciousness. What you desire for yourself, desire for others. See their fulfillment and happiness just as clearly as you see your own. In the realm of consciousness, there is infinite abundance. Your good does not come at the expense of another's, but adds to the expression of good in the world. This relates to another aspect of building yourself quietly, the importance of silence regarding your inner work. The Master advised, let not thy left hand know what thy right hand doeth. There is wisdom in this counsel. When you speak prematurely of your intentions, or share your technique with those who do not understand the law, you often dissipate the energy of your assumption. The unbelief or skepticism of others can weaken your faith if you are not yet firmly established in your new concept of self. Furthermore, the very act of talking about what you are doing shifts your attention from the feeling of the wish fulfilled to the process of achieving it. And since attention is the tool with which you impress the subconscious, this shifting can delay the manifestation of your desire. So build yourself quietly. Keep your own counsel. Let your results speak for you. When others notice the changes in your life and ask how you accomplished them, then you may share this law, but even then speak only to those who have ears to hear. Let me share with you another letter, this one from a woman who had struggled with chronic illness for over a decade. After learning of the law of assumption, she began each night to experience herself as vibrantly healthy. She felt the energy flowing through her body, imagined herself engaging in activities that had long been impossible for her, and gave thanks for her perfect health. She told no one of this practice, not even her husband. Within 3 months, her condition had improved so dramatically that her physicians were astounded. Tests that had previously confirmed her illness now showed no trace of it. She had built herself quietly, and her body conformed to her new self-concept. This is not isolated or exceptional. It is the normal operation of law. What you believe, what you truly accept as real in the depths of your being, must objectify itself in your experience. According to your faith, be it done unto you is not a religious platitude, but a statement of psychological law. Now, some of you may be thinking that this sounds too simple, that something so powerful cannot be so easily accessible. But I ask you, must a thing be difficult to be true? The operation of this law is simple, though the discipline required to apply it consistently may challenge you. The challenge lies not in the technique itself, but in your willingness to persist despite appearances. For when you begin this practice, the evidence of your senses will contradict your assumption. Everything in your outer world will proclaim that your imaginal act is but fantasy. This is the testing point. Will you be faithful to the unseen reality of your assumption, or will you bow down to the evidence of your senses? Those who succeed are those who understand that the outer world is a shadow, a reflection of inner states. Just as it takes time for the fruit to appear after a seed is planted, so there is a psychological gestation period between your assumption and its visible manifestation. During this interval, you must persist in your assumption regardless of appearances. You must live from your desired state, not for it. Living from the end means that you do not look for your desire. You look from your desire. You see the world as you would see it if your desire were already fulfilled. The shift in consciousness from seeking to possessing, from wanting to having, is the essence of effective prayer. Prayer is not begging a power outside yourself to change your circumstances. Prayer is claiming in consciousness what is already yours in potential and feeling the joy of that possession before its physical manifestation. When you pray in this manner, assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you are applying the highest form of creative power. This understanding transforms your approach to every aspect of life. You no longer see yourself as a victim of circumstances, but as the creator of circumstances. You no longer feel the need to manipulate others or force situations, for you know that by changing yourself within, you change your outer world without effort. Consider your relationships. If you wish to be loved, you must first assume the feeling of being loved. If you wish for recognition in your career, you must assume the feeling of being recognized. If you wish for abundance, you must assume the feeling of abundance. The outer manifestation follows the inner assumption with mathematical precision. This is why so many conventional approaches to change fail. They attempt to alter effects while leaving the cause consciousness unchanged. It is like trying to dispel darkness by fighting it with a stick. The only way to remove darkness is to introduce light. Similarly, the only way to remove an unwanted condition from your life is to introduce the opposite state in consciousness. If you are experiencing lack, do not fight against it or complain about it, for that only perpetuates the consciousness of lack. Instead, assume the feeling of abundance. If you are experiencing illness, do not focus on the symptoms, for that intensifies the state of illness. Instead, assume the feeling of perfect health. If you are experiencing conflict in a relationship, do not analyze the conflict or blame the other person, for that solidifies the state of conflict. Instead, assume the feeling of harmonious relationship. The technique is always the same. Identify the state you wish to occupy. Construct a scene that implies you already occupy. Immerse yourself in that scene until it feels real. And then, from that state, view the world. The degree of your success will be determined by the degree to which you can make your imaginal act feel natural. For imagination creates reality, but only when what you imagine is felt as real. And feeling is the result of self-persuasion. You must persuade yourself of the reality of your assumption until your whole being accepts it. This is the meaning of belief. Many fail because they try to imagine something they find impossible to believe. Start with something that does not overly challenge your sense of what is possible. As you experience success in these smaller manifestations, your faith in the law will grow, and you will be able to apply it to increasingly significant areas of your life. But whether your desire seems small or great in the eyes of the world matters not at all. The same law operates in every instance. The creative process does not know difficulty. It knows only law. When you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, the law begins to operate to bring about the conditions needed for the objective realization of your assumption. Let me emphasize again the importance of persistence. You must not take your desires out of the invisible realm prematurely. Just as a farmer does not dig up his seeds to see if they are growing, so you must not constantly check your progress or revise your approach based on outer evidence. The seed has been planted in consciousness. Your task now is to water it with continued assumption until it breaks through into visible manifestation. One of the most common reasons for failure is the tendency to switch back and forth between the new state and the old. Each time you return to the old state, you undo some of the work accomplished in assuming the new. You must make a clean break with the old state. You must die to the old man in order to live as the new. This is the true meaning of rebirth, to cease identifying with what you were and to fully identify with what you desire to be. I am sometimes asked about the nature of desire itself. If consciousness is the only reality, and if all states already exist within consciousness, then where do our desires come from? The answer is that desire is God's word knocking at the door of your attention. When you feel a genuine desire, it is evidence that the fulfillment of that desire exists now in the invisible realm and is seeking expression through you. So do not feel guilty about your desires or judge them by conventional standards of morality. All states are inherently divine, for they are all within consciousness, which is God. The only relevant question is, what state do you wish to occupy? Once you have made your choice, the means of fulfillment will flow naturally from your assumption of the state. This is why building yourself quietly is so powerful. In the silence of your own mind, free from the judgments and opinions of others, you can select the state that represents your heart's desire and occupy through the controlled use of your imagination. And since imagination is the creative power, what you imagine with feeling must objectify itself in your world. Let me address another question that often arises: what of effort? What of action? There is a common misconception that this teaching encourages passivity. Nothing could be further from the truth. Action is an essential part of the expression of a state. But it must be the right kind of action that flows naturally from your new state of consciousness. When you have successfully assumed the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you will find yourself compelled from within to take certain actions. These actions will not be the strained efforts of someone trying to achieve a goal. They will be the natural behaviors of someone who already has achieved it. And these inspired actions lead effortlessly to the objective realization of your desire. A man who assumes wealth thinks differently, makes decisions differently, notices opportunities that the man assuming poverty would miss. A woman who assumes health moves differently, eats differently, responds to her body differently than the woman assuming illness. The actions flow from the state, not the other way around. So yes, you will act, but your actions will be determined by the state of consciousness from which they spring. First the assumption, then the actions appropriate to that assumption, then the outer manifestation. This is the sequence of creation. Let me share one more letter, this one from a man who had been seeking a very specific home for his family. For 2 years he had searched without success for a house that met all his criteria and was within his price range. After learning of the law of assumption, he began to experience in imagination the feeling of living in his ideal home. He imagined moving through the rooms, entertaining friends in the space, watching his children play in the yard. He did this each night as he fell asleep. Within weeks, a realtor called him about a property that had just come on the market, a property that matched his specifications precisely. What's more, the asking price was slightly below what he had budgeted. Upon inquiry, he discovered that the owner was someone he had met briefly at a social gathering months before. The transaction proceeded smoothly, and he is now living in the home he had so clearly imagined. Did this man find his ideal home because of luck or coincidence? By no means. He found it because he had assumed the state of already living there, and the law operated to bring the outer circumstances into alignment with his inner assumption. He built himself quietly, and his world reshaped itself accordingly. I tell you these stories not to impress you, but to impress upon you the reliability of the law. It works for all who apply it correctly, regardless of their background, education, or circumstances. It is no respecter of persons. The only variable is your ability to assume and maintain the feeling of your wish fulfilled. As we draw near to the conclusion of tonight's discussion, I urge you to test this law in your own experience. Do not take my word for it. Apply the principle I have outlined and judge by results. Start with something that matters to you, but does not evoke anxiety or doubt when you contemplate its fulfillment. As you gain confidence in the process, you can apply it to more significant areas of your life. Remember always that your consciousness is the one and only reality. Every state exists now in the depths of your being. When you assume a state, you are not creating it. You are selecting it from the infinite variety of states that constitute your complete self. And by dwelling in that state, by making it real through feeling, you bring it into expression. This is the meaning of the scriptural promise. All things whatsoever ye pray and ask for, believe that ye have received them, and ye shall have them. To believe you have received your desires, to assume the feeling of its fulfillment before its visible manifestation. This is the secret of effective prayer. Let me give you a technique to practice as you leave here tonight. Select one desire that you wish to realize. Formulate a scene which, if true, would imply the fulfillment of that desire. Perhaps it is a conversation with a friend in which they congratulate you on your good fortune. Perhaps it is the sight of a document that would confirm your achievement. Whatever it may be, make it as specific and as natural as possible. Then, tonight as you prepare for sleep, quiet your mind and body. Relax completely. Close your eyes and enact your imaginal scene. See it clearly, hear the sounds associated with it, feel the emotions that would be yours if it were actually happening. Do this until your scene takes on the feeling of reality. Then, with the feeling of fulfillment still present, drift off to sleep. Do this for several consecutive nights and watch for signs of its manifestation in your outer world. Remember that there may be a gestation period during which the seed you have planted grows beneath the surface. Do not disturb it with doubt or impatience. Water it with continued assumption until it breaks through into visible expression. In this way, you are building yourself quietly. You are using the creative power of consciousness to reshape your world from within. There is no force in the universe that can stop the manifestation of what you have planted in consciousness with feeling and faith. Let me close with these words. You are divine. You are the operant power in your world. All that you perceive outside yourself is nothing more than your consciousness objectified. Know this, apply this, live by this, and you will transform not only your own life, but the lives of all who come into contact with you. Go now in peace, but go with the awareness that you carry within you the power that creates and sustains the universe. Use it wisely, use it lovingly, and use it with the certainty that what you assume must objectify itself in your experience. This is law, and the law is sure. Build yourself quietly in the sacred temple of your imagination, for there and only there can true transformation take place. And as you transform yourself within, your outer world must correspond to that transformation. This is the promise and the proof of the law of assumption. And now, I have shared with you the principle by which I live. I have given you the key that can unlock any door in the mansion of your dreams. It is up to you to take this key and use it. For although I can explain the law, only you can apply it to your life. Remember that the time to act is now, not tomorrow, not when circumstances seem more favorable, but now in the quiet of your own mind. For the kingdom of heaven is within you, and the kingdom of heaven is the realm of imagination where all creation begins. If you have built castles in the air, your work need not be lost. That is where they should be. Now put the foundations under them. And the foundation is the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Feel now the reality of what you desire. And that feeling will build a bridge of incidents that will lead inevitably to the objectification of your assumption. Go now and build yourself quietly. Go with the confidence that what you have heard tonight is not theory but law, immutable, unchangeable law. And go with the awareness that you are more than you appear to be, that your imagination is the very workshop of God, and that through its proper use you can transform your life into a living testament to the creative power of consciousness. I leave you with this thought. What would you do? Who would you be? If you knew you could not fail, answer this question not with words, but with the feeling of your wish fulfilled. For in that feeling lies the seed of all creation. And the seed, once planted in the fertile soil of consciousness and watered with the feeling of reality, must grow into manifestation. This is the law, and the law is sure. Build yourself quietly, and watch as the universe reshapes itself to accommodate the new you that you have created in the silence of your imagination. For what is imagined with feeling must become fact. This is not faith, it is law. And the law works with mathematical precision for all who apply it correctly. You are the operant power in your world. You are the God of your universe. Know this, apply this, let you be as the master promised, the heir of all things, the true Son of God, co-creator with the Divine One. For imagination is God in action, and through its conscious use, you participate in the creative process by which all things come into being. Build yourself quietly and you build yourself surely. For the foundation of all creation is consciousness. And what you assume as true in consciousness must objectify itself in your world. This is the eternal promise, the everlasting covenant between God and man. And God and man are one, for God is your own wonderful human imagination.